Today we preview the 2025 Miami Marlins with beat writer and reporter Kevin Barral. You're listening to the Bucko Banter podcast brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plate, sending case after case. Run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Welcome back to another team preview. We've got the Miami Marlins today, and we're joined by Marlins beat reporter and writer Kevin Barral. Kevin, welcome to Bucko Banter, man.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you jumping on. Let's talk Marlins baseball. Last year, 62-100, fifth in the NL East. I know it's tough sledding in that division. It's going to be tough this year, too. Let's look at the offseason so far. We added Cal Quantrill, Eric Wagman. Via trade, we added Matt Mervis, Starlin Caba, Matt Acosta, and we lost Mike Baumann, Adam Aller, Darren McConaughey.
McCoffin, I think.
McCoffin?
I think it's McCoffin.
McCacken.
There we go. Irish.
And then Vidal Brujan, Jesus Luzardo went to a division rival, and Jake Berger. How are we feeling about this offseason? What grade would you give it?
What grade? That's the question of the day, huh? I mean, you could look at this offseason in many ways. Look, I mean, I'm surprised to begin that they traded Luzardo after really not pitching to what many expected him to do. Just, tough season, got injured. The Jake Berger trade, no one saw coming either, just with how much control he still had left. And on top of that, he wasn't even making $1 million. So it was just a weird trade to begin with, two weird trades. But at the end of the day, look, they replenished the farm system with those two big moves. You get Starlin Caba, who's the best position player prospect that they have now. Then you add Marion Boyd, who's a pretty good outfielder, could play all three spots. More of a bats a ball guy, struggled a little bit so far. And then in the Jake Berger trade, you look at that one, and it's three really good prospects. Max Acosta has been the story on the prospect side so far at big league camp. That guy is really good. He probably will stick at short, has the power. Then a Shedry Vargas, who to many thought was the main piece of this deal, but I would say it's Acosta. 20-year-old, just recently turned 20, shortstop, probably won't stick there. And then Brian Mendoza, who has been a sight to watch during camp, at least on the minor league backfield. So, you look at those two trades and it's all right. Like a lot of those guys are now towards the top of your system, and you complement that with the trades you made at the deadline, which to many was a successful deadline for the Marlins, adding Robbie Snelling, Major from that Padres trade, Augustin Ramirez, Jared Serna from the Yankees, and then Davis and De Los Santos and Andrew Pintar from that Puck trade. So just overall, I think that you have to give it an A, or at least a B in terms of just what you brought back. Now, the return for Luzardo was a little underwhelming, to be honest. I mean, I think if you would have traded him at the deadline, it would have been a very different package. You probably would have gotten a little bit more, but they went for quality. And Starlin Caba is probably the best defensive shortstop in the minor leagues. He's a guy who's great bat the ball, great approach. He's just 19 years old, but I think there's a long way to go for him. And that guy's the future of this organization, at least that shortstop. So, and then obviously the lack of free agent signings kind of brings that grade down a little bit. You only added Cal Quantrill. Eric Wagman's a split deal, so we still don't know if he'll make the team or not. And we'll see if he does. He maybe has a shot to be a bench piece. Quantrill, they needed to add a starting pitcher no matter what, and I'm glad they added someone like Quantrill, which I know some of your guys over at Just Baseball are pretty excited about. He's the guy who's going to give you 140, 160 innings. He's going to give you high 3 ERA, which you'll take. I mean, look, this is a guy who's yet to pitch at Lone Depot Park in a Major League Baseball game. I'm excited to see what it looks like, but it's going to benefit him at the end of the day. Lone Depot is pretty pitcher-friendly for the most part, although it's been more hitter-friendly recently, but not too much. And then aside from that, you made some really under-the-radar minor league signings like Heriberto Hernandez, for example, who has been awesome in spring training so far, a left fielder. Ronnie Simon can kind of play a little bit of everywhere. He was actually the MVP in the Dominican Winter League a couple of years back. So interested to see how that looks. Like overall, it was a lot of good. It was a lot of lack. I think the biggest thing was just the lack of moves that they made. There were so many options out there on the free agent market that the Marlins could have brought in a big bat. And I'm not even mentioning Matt Mervis, who's looked really good so far in spring training. So I would say it's a C. I think they made the right moves on the trade front, at least from what they brought back. But I think the lack of moves definitely makes this one of the more boring off seasons. But again, this is a team that wasn't looking to compete. It was more of a let the kids play season. And that's what they're going to do with all these young players. I mean, there's only 2 guys on the 40-man roster at the age of 30. So that just tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. How about what are your thoughts on Peter Bendick so far? It seems like they finally took, I don't know if I want to say picked a direction, but they went all in on acquiring young talent. That was something that they were hurting at. They had the arms. I mean, they still do, and some of them are coming back from injury this year. But they added some big bats with Davis and De Los Santos, like you said, and some other names. Matt Mervis is also a guy that was kind of blocked in Chicago. Not kind of blocked. He was blocked in Chicago.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Are you happy with the Bendix regime so far?
So far, yeah. I mean, look, it obviously sucks what happened in terms of just, look, you had this team, went to the postseason, and a year later you lose 100 games. Like, I think any fan hates that. But you look at that 2023 team, and you have to tell yourself that was the worst offense to ever make the postseason. It was like a negative 51 run differential. It was a lot of luckiness, a lot of 1-run wins. That wasn't going to be sustainable in the following year. So rightfully so, Bruce brought in someone who said, all right, let's build this from the ground up. The minor league system was one of the worst in baseball. So they had to really flip this thing around. They had to turn the ship in some sort of direction. They were a little bit like in the middle land where you really don't know if you're going to go for it, if you're not. Peter tried, to his credit. He signed Tim Anderson, which obviously didn't work out whatsoever, but he made some sort of move to see, all right, let's see if this team with, the minimal additions, we still have some really good pitching, assuming Yuri was going to be in that starting rotation. Let's see what happens. And unfortunately, an 0-9 start is really hard to rebound from that. You have to trade Luis Arias. Starting pitching was as thin as it got. Lost almost everyone in that opening day rotation. So it was tough. It was really tough season. They went in the direction where early on they knew it's time to move on. It's time to, kind of blow this thing up. And that's what they did. They made a lot of trades that have worked out so far, just early returns on some of these minor leaguers, and we'll see what happens. I think right now he's done the right things. As tough as it is to see a lot of guys go, I still found the Berger and Luzardo trades very interesting, but so far those guys, the returns have been awesome. So it's hard to say you hate it. Obviously, you want to see what these guys do at the major league level, but early on, the trades have really seemed to pan out. So maybe except the De La Cruz one for both sides, it seems like, honestly.
Yeah.
Junsuk Shim has really struggled, and I think Garrett Forster was the other player. I think he's going to be a catcher now, so we'll see what happens there. So aside from that, I think he's been fine. Obviously, it's tough, and he's gotten some good finds in the bullpens. Declan Cronin, Calvin Fauché, 2 guys who've come in, one off of a waiver claim, the other one was a trade, and they've been awesome. I mean, everyone thought they were getting traded last deadline. I'm surprised they didn't. They're probably going to be some of the top relievers on the market this time around in the deadline. So I'll be interested to see what he does this season. But so far, he has a plan and he's sticking to it, and he's not going to divert away from it unless this team all of a sudden surprises many, which unfortunately I don't see happening.
Kevin, let's go through the projected lineup on Fangraphs here. Shortstop, Xavier Edwards. Third base, Connor Norby. Right field, Jesus Sanchez. DH, Jonah Bride. First base, Matt Mervis. Second base, Otto Lopez. Left field, Kyle Stowers. In center field, Dane Myers. And at catcher, Nick Fortes. On the bench, we got Liam Hicks, Javier Sanoja, Eric Wagaman, and Derek Hill. And of course, we got some honorable mentions here. But just looking at that lineup on paper, what holes are you noticing? Do you project anyone else to sneak in there after spring training?
Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now, and I think definitely left field is the competition right now. I don't see Stowers and Griffin Conan both making that roster. It has to be one of them. You can't have 2 of the same guy, unfortunately. 2 high strikeout guys, power heavy. I think Conan right now has the edge. He's actually played a lot more than Stowers in spring training too. So I think that'll be the case. An opening day catcher actually is probably going to be Liam Hicks. He's caught Sandy every single time out there. So, and it is impressive because you have to think about it. Liam Hicks was a Rule 5 guy, never played in AAA. So he's going to make a huge jump, and he's going to catch a guy who won the Cy Young unanimously in 2022. So I am interested. That was intriguing to see, just given, you had this guy, Nick Fortes, who backed up Jacob Stallings for those couple of years in Miami. Never caught Sandy in a regular season game. He's only caught him once in a spring training game, which was in Tropicana Field in 2023, excuse me. And yeah, I mean, aside from that, look, I think the rest looks pretty set in stone. I think Mervis will be the opening day first baseman. He'll platoon with Bride at first. Whoever plays first, the other one DHs. The bench is an interesting situation. I think Derek Hill is the right guy there. He's been looking really good so far this spring. Could play all 3 outfield spots. Wagaman, I think we'll see what happens there if anyone else really, makes a name for themselves. Acosta really has so far. Sanoja is like your super utility, could play literally everywhere except first and catcher, and then whoever that catcher will be, which will probably be Fortes, at least for the first game of the season when Sandy takes them out against the Pirates. So yeah, I think it looks good. Right now, I really can't give you like a certain guy like Acosta. He's never seen AAA ball yet, so I'm interested to see if the Marlins will be aggressive and have him make the opening day roster. But outside of that, I mean, you're having an Albert Almora who's fighting for a roster spot. See if he can maybe revive his career a little bit, play all 3 spots. And the Marlins, at the end of the day, they're trying to be as versatile as possible. In the outfield, they're having Jesus Sanchez play center. They're having Dane Myers kind of switch around everywhere. They're having a lot of guys take center field reps. So at the end of the day, that may be a rotating door. But first game of the season, I do think it'll be Dane Myers. And for the most part, I think Fangraphs has it pretty much set in stone, except I would put Griffin Conan in left over Stowers.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm worried about, I mean, not that Marlins are too worried about this year, is the defense on the left side is between Norby and Xavier Edwards. But I think those are 2 guys that have a chance to really showcase the bat at least this year. But let's go into the rotation real quick. We got Sandy Alcantara, Ryan Weathers, Edward Cabrera, Max Meyer, and Cal Quantrill as your projected rotation. And that's even considering that Braxton Garrett and Yuri Perez are out for the season. So, I mean, Ryan Weathers, I'm seeing a lot of positive things about him coming out of camp. I mean, the stuff looks really good. I mean, this is a pretty solid rotation given a team that probably will finish last in the NL East, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's one thing that's going to keep this team afloat, at least to begin, it will be that rotation. I mean, you have Sandy back. You'll take that any day. I mean, that guy's one of the best pitchers in baseball and healthy. Ryan Weathers is really good, looked really, really good in that last start at West Palm Beach. Unfortunately, his first start got rained out, so he had to do up downs in the backfields. But aside from that, look, I mean, Cabrera, we have to see what happens. That guy is just on and off. Looks like they'd been fielding calls on him for the last couple of years. I mean, coincidentally, the Pirates were a team that were interested in him, and nothing really came to be of that, but definitely seemed like talks were happening. Max Myers looked awesome in his couple starts already. Added that sweeper. He's going to start using the sinker a lot more. Needed to add more pitches to his repertoire, and he did that because it was only fastball, slider with a changeup that wasn't very good. All of that has really improved so far this spring. And then Cal Quantrill, you mentioned it. It was a tough first start. I think it's just a matter of, let's see what happens in start number 2. Unfortunately, opted tomorrow, which would have lined up. So he'll probably just do something in the backfields. And then the other name to mention that could potentially enter that rotation is Valente Belloso, who's looked awesome in his 2 starts so far, or 1 start, 1 appearance. Look, he's added the velo. He's averaging 90. He hit 92, hit 93 in his first start. So someone who was really a slow pitch guy, didn't pitch too hard, has increased the velo. He's painting the strike zone awesome. It's looking good. A lot of swing miss, like everything looks a lot sharper. Something that, you said, okay, he got really lucky his first season. Like you look at the ERA and the FIP, it's completely different. The FIP is through the roof. The ERA is pretty low. So I don't think he'll make the rotation, unfortunately, just because of the signing of Quantrill. And then I really do think this organization loves Max Meyer. They want to see him as a starter. I think he'll start at AAA in first injury. Which injuries happen, they'll happen. He'll be the first guy up. But yeah, look, this rotation is going to keep this team afloat, and I'm excited to see what they can do. And look, at the end of the day, when the trade deadline comes around, some of those guys are probably going to be on the move. Cal Quantrill, if he's pitching well, he's only getting paid $3.5 million. He'll probably be on the move. Sandy, that's the crown jewel of the trade deadline, 100%. It's such a team-friendly deal. He'll be on the move most likely. Edward Cabrera, we'll see what happens. And, I mean, we'll see what happens with the rest of that rotation, honestly. And then you have Yuri coming back at the All-Star break. So it's only going to get better from there.
Let's go through the bullpen real quick. Closer, Calvin Foucher. Setup, you got Jesus Tinoco, Anthony Bender, Declan Cronin, and Andrew Nardi, Lake Bachar. Am I saying that right?
Lake Bacher.
Okay. Anthony Venezi. Oh my God.
Veneziano?
Veneziano.
Okay, we got.
Oh, I should have had that one.
Yeah, okay.
I should have had that one.
I got to let Scotty take all the Italian names. And then Ronnie Henriquez. How are we feeling about the bullpen? Any names coming out of spring that can make this back end?
Yeah, so the two names that have been noted have been Josh Simpson and John Rooney, two lefties that are NRIs. With Andrew Nardi yet to throw in a spring game, his status for opening day is kind of in jeopardy right now. Suffered, it was like like something kind of like got to him during the offseason there on his arm. I gotta like look for that exact terminology, but he's hurt, so he is now finally resumed throwing. I don't think he'll start this opening day for the Marlins. I don't think he'll be on that roster. So I would have to think if you want to add a lefty, because if not, if you remove Nardi, there's no lefties in this bullpen except Veneziano. You would have to add someone like a Simpson or a John Rooney. Simpson, who was recently on the 40-man, unfortunately just underwent a lot of injuries, and they just had to end up DFAing him to make room for other guys. But another name who I've really liked is Veneziano. That guy's pumping out 95, 96, something we did not see last season. It's really good stuff. I know he struggled in his last appearance against the Atlanta Braves on Friday. But aside from that, he's looked awesome. So I'm really excited to see what he does this season. Ronnie Henriquez, who pitched yesterday on Sunday, looked awesome too. He's pumping out 95, 96. He was claimed off of waivers by the Minnesota Twins. He's a small dude, but he throws gas. So I'm excited to see what he does. And Fauché, Cronin, Tinoco, those are three guys that Miami Marlins manager Clayton McCullough mentioned will probably be getting, sometime at that ninth inning role as the closer of this team. So looking like closer by committee, but if I had to, nail in one guy to be that closer, I think it would be Fauché. Did it after the Tanner Scott trade last season. So I'm excited to see what he does. He's looked really good so far in his 3 outings. And then, the underrated name, which is Lake Balker, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he could do during the season. Had some really good numbers when he came to Miami. He has struggled a little bit this spring. It's been a little on and off, but so far, when you're bumping out 95, 96 as well, it's a flame-throwing bullpen that, again, come the trade deadline, a lot of those guys are going to probably be up there on the move. So the Marlins, if there's anything that they do well, it's produce pitching, and they're probably going to continue to do it no matter how many guys they trade, because the minor leagues look really nice when it comes to what they have there with Thomas White, Noble. You have a lot of other guys, Snelling, Mazer, at that starting rotation. And then bullpen, Josh Eknes, who pitched today, Nigel Belgrave. You have a lot of guys just ready to come up. So they'll probably be moving some guys, but the young talent's going to be coming up. And I think these bullpens are still going to be pretty fun to watch.
A great segue into prospects. Who are some prospects that you're excited to follow this year, or you think it might make an impact on this team at some point?
Yeah, the first guy we have to mention is Max Acosta. I think this has been the story of the spring for the Marlins on the prospect side. Really excited to see what he does. He's going to stick at short. Pipeline really did him dirty with the ranking, but especially with the defensive grade. Again, 45 field, which I think most of our staff at Fish on First really was kind of blown away by that. But the other name to keep an eye out on is Augustin Ramirez. He's currently catching right now as we're recording this in Port St. Lucie. Has a split squad today. I don't think he'll make the roster, but he's looked good so far. Now it's just a matter of, can this guy can he stick at catcher? I think that's been the biggest struggle for him. He's struggled defensively a lot, but seems like it's really improved. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like during the AAA season. Actually going to probably watch some film on him after tonight's game in Port St. Lucie. Offensively, he's looked good. Had the 115-mile-per-hour exit velo hit the other day. Other guys who could potentially make the majors, Davison De Los Santos probably will at some point debut. It's been an interesting ride so far for him with the Marlins in terms of just this spring training. It's, getting the in-person look at him. He's a huge dude, but like the approach is just, it's a little flawed. It still needs a lot of work. It feels like he really just wants to swing, man.
He hit 40 home runs last year in the minors. Like, was that just a product of Reno, or was
you got to think some of it had to be Reno, but the strikeout numbers were also low, like down. So it's just like, what's it going to look like at the next level though?
Sure.
And usually when anyone goes up, the strikeout percentage is going to go up no matter what. You're going to be a little aggressive. You're just going to want to get something going. And for someone like Davison, who swings more than anyone on the Marlins, it's going to be interesting to see, but the power's there. We saw it. 40 home runs, looked good for the most part in Jacksonville. Aside from what many people say, he could actually play first base. He's not a bad first baseman whatsoever. I think he'll be able to stick there, play that position, maybe DH a little bit. I like what I've seen so far from him in terms of just the power and defensively. Aside from that, Jared Cerna, he came in that Yankees trade along with Ramirez. He hit a home run yesterday on Sunday against the Cardinals. He's a guy who's probably going to slot in at second. Another prospect who got some time was Javier Sanoja. Again, plays everywhere. Excited to see what he does there. But yeah, look, this is a system that you look at it from last year to this year. It's completely different, completely overhauled. It's a lot better. It's probably a top 10, top 15 farm system in baseball, and it'll probably only go up from there, just given the Marlins have the number 7 overall pick. Probably will make a couple more splashes in the international signing class in the upcoming season. They're really high on what they could do there. They know they have to nail the picks, and they also have to nail international classes, so they could find the sustainable winning that they've been lauding for years. So I'm interested to see what that looks like, what how the system will grow. But there's a lot of names that are major league ready or close to it, at least, that will probably contribute on the Marlins in 2025.
Kevin, what about a pick to click? Who's going to help this Marlins team win more games this year?
I mean, you got to go with Xavier Edwards. I think that's the right guy. Look, the arm is there. It's improved. I know many people were saying, he doesn't have an arm, but he went through a very rigorous offseason when it comes to just building up that arm strength. Worked with the Marlins catching coordinator, worked with the catching coach, just to improve that arm strength. That's really the only issue right now with him. I think he can't stick for a bit. Eventually, I do think he's gonna have to move to second just because of the guys coming up behind him. But look, he has the arm to stick there. This is a guy who's gonna hit over 300. He's gonna be your leadoff guy every single night. He's gonna steal 40 to 50 bags. He says he wants to steal 60, so we'll see if he gets to that point. I think he can. He has very, not sneaky power, but he does have a little bit of power to give you a couple home runs throughout the season, maybe 5-7 home runs, which you'll take any day of the week from a leadoff hitter. So, yeah, look, that's the guy I'm going with. Connor Norby's another guy who I'm pretty excited to watch. I think he has all-star potential. We'll see what happens. I think there's a lot of work still to be done at third base. I think they're going to have to, at some point, just move him back to second or put him at left field, which I think would be a pretty good option. So we'll see what happens with him. But those are the two guys. And I know, Scott, you were mentioning that left side of the infield. I think it's going to be a work in progress for sure. But I think offensively, those are the two guys you're looking forward to watching. That's the 1 and 2 hitter on that lineup at this moment.
Yeah, those are the two guys I actually have written down for me. My pick to click is Edwards and Norby, because I think Edwards is your prototypical leadoff hitter, that one that you don't really see too much in today's game anymore. Yeah. So I'm excited to watch him. How about before we let you go here, Kevin, how about a 2025 prediction? It could be team-oriented, results-wise, or it even just be like a player projection or prediction for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think the Marlins are going to be a little bit better than 100 losses. I'll say that they do reach the 70 win marker, as bad as that may sound to other organizations. For the Marlins, that's an 8-win improvement. And for someone like a first-year manager, Clayton McCullough, you want to see improvement. After all these changes you've made to the organization, all these practice methods that they're doing that have become pretty noticeable throughout, baseball, you got to show that you could win. At least you could win more than you did the year prior. Now, player projection, I think Norby has that 20 homer potential in him, and that would be a huge first step for someone like Norby, because coming from the Orioles just was getting blocked and blocked and blocked, had no shot at sticking up there in the major leagues. I think Norby could reach 20 home runs, and that's not just Lone Depot Park being more hitter friendly now, but just him. Obviously, you travel on the road, you're going to go into a lot of hitter friendly environments, and I think he'll have a good opportunity to do that. So I think this team will be better. I think they have the pitching to do it. Now it's just a matter of, will this offense click, and what do these storylines that we go into spring look like? Not just coming out of spring, but at the end of the season, will Edwards stick at short? Will Norby be able to stick at third? What guys will stick with this team for the future? So that's like some other storylines you just look at and you want to see answered towards the end of the season.
Awesome. Kevin, we appreciate you jumping on talking Miami Marlins baseball. Where can our listeners find you at?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Kevin_Barral, Barral. You could also see my work at fishonfirst.com. You can check out my work, everyone else's work. We also do a lot of work on Fish on the Farm, which is at Marlins Miners on Twitter. So we do a lot of prospect coverage there. You could also see that on fishonfirst.com. So yeah, guys, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm excited for opening day. Hopefully it's all Skeens, but Sandy versus Skeens may be the best opening day matchup in baseball right now.
Yeah, Absolutely. Might be the quickest one too.
Yeah.
Last game for sure. Well, hey man, appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you on again. All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Guys.
Thanks.
Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates or the steak by the plates and